I have read 51 books this year, which is kind of crazy because it doesn't feel like I've read that many because this year has just gone by so fast. But in this video, I'm going to be going through the 51 books that I've read, the best and worst books I've read this year. My goal was to read 100 books by the end of the year, but I feel like I'm already going to pass that since it's still so early in the year. We're not even into summer, which is when I read the most. So if you want to see like in real time what I'm reading, head over to my Goodreads because I update literally like the minute that I finish a book, like I update on there. And then I also share lots of like book chats and like fun book stuff over on Instagram and TikTok. So make sure you're following me there. And of course subscribe because I have new videos Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So 3 days a week, every single week, like no ifs, ands, or buts. So let's get into it. I know you guys are gonna love these books. Start with the books that I have read this month, but I'm not going to go into detail because I'm going to talk about these in my reading wrap up. So far I've read 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 books this month. I've read Black Girls Must Die Exhausted, which was the first book in this series. It's by Jane Allen. I've read Behind the Scenes by Christina C. Jones. I read Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan. I read Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I read the second book in this series and the third book in this series, Black Girls Must Be Magic and Black Girls Must Have It All by Jane Allen. And then I also read On Rotation by Shirlene, I do not know how to say the last name, Abubi. We're gonna do our best there. But these are all the books that I've read. I'm not gonna go into detail about these just because I'm literally gonna do a full wrap up with all the books that I've read. I read 16 books last month, and so I feel like I'll probably read around there this month, and I want to make sure I really dive into these books. So we're going to talk about these in my reading wrap up, but these are part of the little stack that I've read this year. The best way I think to go through these is to just pick them up and share what I've read, but also to share my immediate thoughts. I don't want to like have this video be like an hour long, so we're going to try to make this pretty speedy. The first book that I read in the year was One Day in December by Josie Silver. I actually started reading a ton of Christmas books at the end of December, and they kind of rolled into January. This book was really good. I think it's good for Christmas, but also good for just the holiday season in general. Love Light Farms by B.K. Borson was a literal bore to me. I just couldn't get into it. I don't know. I feel like the storyline was trying to be like Hallmark, but really missed the mark. I read Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, which this was my first 5-star read of the year. Literally obsessed with her writing, and now I've purchased so many books of hers. Haven't read anything else yet because her book, like her other books, are really thick, but it's definitely on my TBR, and I want to read ASAP because her writing is really good. I actually did read another book by her just like as I'm thinking of it, and I'll share in a little bit, but it was a shorter book. Love this, 5 out of 5. I read It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This one was spicy, like an insane amount of spice, but this one was still, I don't know, it was spicy, a little spicy for me, but it was like a nice, just easy breezy read, nothing like crazy. Read Love Radio by Ebony Liddell. Now this book had some of the best dates that I think I've ever read in like a romance. Maybe not ever, but it had some incredible dates. He took her on a date to a bookstore and had like a little picnic in the bookstore, and literally I was just swooning the whole time. The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I really like this book. I love the banter in it. I feel like the author had really great banter in comparison to a lot of other books I've read. I could really feel the characters and they felt very real to me. Then I also read Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry by Joy Goffney. I really thought that the idea behind this was really unique, the way that the character like lost her journal and had to like find someone to help her find it. I love any book where there's like obviously a love going on, but there's some other like thing that they're like trying to navigate together, like the couple or friends or whatever, and it just kind of keeps the storyline going, which I enjoyed. Read Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I kind of felt like this was a little overhyped. I feel like there were way too many pages. I mean, this is like a over 400 page book, and like the amount of spice in this book is wild. Like I feel like they barely talked to each other and connected, so I just was kind of over it by the time it ended, and I was very glad that it ended. If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan was a 5 out of 5-star read for me. I cannot wait for the second book to come out. It's like this fall, I think, that it comes out, and it's actually from his point of view, and I can't wait to see like what Finney thought while they were like kind of living their lives together and separate at the same time. It comes out I think in September. 5 out of 5. So good. Very sad book. I feel like it was very introspective for me while I was reading. And I thought a lot about like how I grew up and I don't know, just like my growth in life and experiences in life, and it just was really good. Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This was very cute. I actually could imagine this being an actual movie in real life because it was very cheesy for sure, but it was just a very, very cute read. If you also are not into books with spice, Lynn Painter's YA books do not have spice. So this one didn't have any spice, and it was really nice because I feel like sometimes books just have a little too much, and this was a nice break. Then I read All I've Wanted, All I've Needed by A.E. Valdez. I haven't read anything of A.E. Valdez before. This was my first book by her. But I was just a little underwhelmed. Like the writing to me was a little too easy. I just wasn't obsessed with it, but I have picked up A Worthy Love, and I feel like that one will be a little bit better. This one was really short, and sometimes I feel like short books that are kind of like novellas, I have a hard time getting into, so I'm gonna give this author another chance, but I just wasn't obsessed with it. Didn't hate it, but it was just kind of like, you know, not the best read for me. And another stack of books. I'm just gonna jump right into it. Oh my gosh, I do not want to drop these. I'm trying so hard to keep them in the air. Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I feel like this is when I really started to become obsessed with her writing, and I just jumped into so many of her books. I had read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I think 2 years ago maybe, or a year ago. And so I kind of forgot her writing and how much I loved it, and I was obsessed with this book. It was very good. I think I rated this like 4 or 4.5. And it was just great. The There Goes the Neighborhood by Jade Adia was a debut novel, and I really liked this. It read more of a mystery to me than like a romance, and I don't know why I thought it was a romance, but this just gave like Scooby-Doo vibes, like Scooby-Doo and the gangs getting together to like solve a mystery type thing, and it was really cute. I also read The Do-Over by Lynn Painter, and this is another book by the author that I was saying who doesn't have a ton of spice in her books. I think I actually liked this one better than the Movies, not because like Better Than the Movies was bad, because it was also really great, but I think I like this one because the timeline in this book is like repeated, so she's constantly going through the same day over and over again until she kind of realizes like what she needs to change in her life, and I just thought that was a unique concept. I feel like books with unique concepts really like grip me. I read Losing Hope by Colleen Hoover, and I actually read this before I read Hopeless. I had read Hopeless years ago in like 2013 when her book, like when the book actually first came out, and I hadn't read it since. So I picked this up, didn't want to reread Hopeless, and I realized that I should have. I did love this book, but I think that there's like a twist at the end kind of, and I wish I had read Hopeless again so I could kind of connect with that main character, but I didn't end up reading it, and you'll see literally in a second. But very good. Colleen Hoover's writing is so easy to read. Then I read Brightside by Kim Holden. This book was very weird to me. I wasn't obsessed with it. I really wanted her to be with her best friend, and on the back it talks about her being best friends with Gus, but like literally on the back it says that the love interest is Keller Banks, and to me I'm just like, fall in love with your best friend. Like I don't really understand the whole Keller Banks situation, so I just kind of wasn't really rooting for them the whole time. I was rooting for her and Gus. So yeah, I just kind of wished like the ending had been different, but it was a very sad book. Then I read Hopeless because I wanted to get another taste of this book, and again I wish that I'd read this one, like reread this one first and then read Losing Hope, because I feel like it would have helped tie up some loose ends, but Colleen Hoover's writing is very easy to read, so it just was very quick, easy, and fun. Then I read He Said, She Said by Kwame Alexander. This book you could definitely tell was written a while ago. They talk about like Facebook, and at one point the guy, he like kisses the girl and he like doesn't ask for consent, and that to me I didn't really care for, because she's like, oh my gosh, like I like didn't really want to kiss you, and like he just like kissed me and he just did it, and I'm like, I don't really like that. Like, you know, so you could definitely tell this was a dated book, but then also there were just some things in it I wasn't absolutely obsessed with. The Fine Print by Lauren Asher was the first book I ever read by this author, and her writing is so easy to read. Like, if you're looking for a book that you can just literally like not want to put down, it is Lauren Asher's books. I ended up reading 3 books of this series because I just couldn't put it down, and I also like the concept of billionaires in the story, and I also like that a lot of the main characters, like the women, are women of color, which I thought was so cool. So I read that one, and then I read Little Do We Know by Tamara Ireland Stone. This was an interesting book. I feel like it kind of was... It was a good coming of age book. It definitely focused a lot on religion, which to me, you guys know my faith is super important to me. So sometimes I have a hard time with that being analyzed by people who are not of the faith. It's kind of like, you know, if you're black, it's like, okay, you can talk about black people if you're black and like maybe talk about things we should work on or whatever as a culture. But like, if you're not, like, this isn't your place, you know, it kind of felt like that. So as I was reading it, it definitely was a great coming of age story, but I kind of wish that there had been more perspective on like good things about like church and community and not necessarily just bad. Then The Neighbor Favorite by Christina Forrest was one that I really thought was so cute. A great concept, and I like that it started out with emails versus just like a regular, I don't know, connection that people have, because I feel like a lot of people do meet online, but you just don't really read about it as much in books. And so it was really cute, and I just really enjoyed it. The Best of Us by Sarah Pekkanen. This one I kind of was just like, I don't know. I wasn't obsessed with it. It was very weird. At the end of it, I was like, what did I just read? Like, I think the book was supposed to help you realize that you need to be grateful for what you have, but I don't know. I wasn't obsessed with it, and I do love Sarah Pekkanen's writing, and I just didn't really like this one. The Golden Couple was one of my favorites of hers. This one just wasn't it. Then I read Terms and Conditions because I was so obsessed with this book that honestly I wanted to read all three in the same sitting, or this series. I was so obsessed with it, I wanted to read all three in the same sitting, but I decided not to so I could like draw it out a bit. Love this book, rated this one 4 stars. Then I read The Last Thing He Told Me. This was a good book, and I actually read this in less than 24 hours. It's by Laura Dave. Such a good thriller. I feel like I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. At the ending, it didn't really hold up to like what I wanted it to be. I feel like it would have been like 5 stars or something like that if the ending had been better, but it just was a little cheesy to me and seemed to be a little unrealistic. But whenever they create the movie or the TV series, maybe they'll be able to do it a little bit better on screen. I'm really excited to watch that. I think it's actually out now. Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell was another one that I read, and this is a thriller. And I feel like thrillers really hinge on their story and plot line versus like character drivenness. Like in a romance, you can really have a story be character driven, but I feel like in a thriller, it has to be very driven by the what's happening in the moment. And I feel like this book was really slow to start, and there was a lot of like description and stuff. So about halfway through is when I really got into it, but by that time I was kind of just like, it's okay. Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score is one I absolutely did not enjoy, and I don't know how I finished this book when it's so freaking thick. It's literally like over 500 pages, and I did not enjoy this book. I think what I didn't enjoy is just because, for one, the main characters in it, like the guys, Knox and his brother, they're just literally 40-year-old men, and I feel like they act like children. And it also, the town itself didn't really seem real to me. The way that like people interact with each other, I don't know, I did not like the vibes in that book, or really the first one. But the writing is so easy to read, which is why I wanted to pick up the second one. I probably will pick up the third one because I do really love Sloane and I want to hear her story, but I just hope I don't see more of like Knox and his brother, so I'm just kind of over them. Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow was one of the saddest books I've ever read. Definitely check the trigger warnings on this one, but so sad. Like, it just absolutely broke my heart. It was a very, very sad book. I found that after this book, I was like, I just want to read something light because my heart felt very heavy, but it was a good book. Then I read Kitchens of the Great Midwest. This was a super quirky book, very weird to me. And this one is by J. Ryan Straddle. I don't read... That was a truck that just went by, good old Midwest. But I don't read a lot of books by men, and I've been trying to broaden my horizons, but this one was not the one I should have broadened my horizons with because I was not in love with it. And then I got into the last book in the Dreamland Billionaires series, and this is by Lauren Asher. This was actually my least favorite of the series, and a lot of people said it was their favorite. I think it was my least favorite because I just didn't connect with Cal as much, but again, still 4-star read. I really enjoyed the whole series as a whole, the entire series as a whole. Then I read Not So Perfect Strangers by L.S. Stratton, and this is a thriller written by a Black woman. it was so good, like so good. And I feel like if you are Black, you'll even resonate with this even more because the author really plays on like the fears of Black people when we feel like we can't necessarily trust the government or like police or people in control, and we feel like we don't have like the same liberties as other people to be able to just like freely live our lives. It just was a really interesting take for a thriller. Gave me Get Out vibes, so I really liked it. Then I read Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings, and this book I rated 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I cried on this book so hard, and I actually shared that in a vlog. If you guys want to go watch this, I think it was on my 24-hour reading vlog. Yeah, I really love this book and I can't wait to get into the rest of the series. I'm really kind of holding out on this because I love it so much that I'm like kind of afraid that the series is going to be over. You know, when you find books like that, you like just don't want to let it go. But then I have to remind myself she's literally writing another book, so I need to like just get it together. Then I read We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. Did not enjoy this book. It was very boring to me, and I also feel like I have a hard time empathizing and sympathizing with super rich like billionaires who are literally just fighting over their inheritance for the entire book. The twist is really what kept me reading. I've never DNF'd a book, but I was very close with this one. The Dead Romantics was one that I wasn't obsessed with, but the writing was really good and the love interest like storyline was very good, but I just don't really care for like anything having to do with like ghosts and stuff like that. I don't really like reading about it, so that kind of just like made me not as interested. But if you like paranormal stuff, you'd probably like this. I just wasn't obsessed with it. Wait for You by Jennifer L. Armentrout was such a good book, like literally such a good book, and I really enjoyed this one. I feel like it was a book that had so much depth to it, but I also found myself just like rooting for the couple, and I don't know, I ended up buying the whole series after this one, and then I think I'm still missing the second book because they're still changing the cover, but I bought literally the entire series and another one of her books, so it's just really good. Then I read The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, and I know that this book is a little bit different than most books because it has a focus kind of on like poetry, I guess, and more like lyrical writing, but I did enjoy this one as well. Then I read Dear Amelia by Asia Monique, and I feel like this one is similar to the Dreamland Billionaire series, but only with Black men, and I really like the storyline. I do wish that it had been longer. I'm not a huge fan of like a novella, and this one is very short. This one is only 150 or 152 pages, but it's about like, it's like a friends to lovers story, which I liked. Then I read this book, Carrie Soto's Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I love this. I rated it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I don't think everyone will like this book, personally. I loved it because it really focused on the resilience of Carrie Soto. She's a tennis player who like doesn't want to lose her like spot in like the lineup of like winners. I don't even know what that's called, but I feel like if you are one, super competitive or super like driven, you'll probably like this book. Especially as a woman, like it's a dog-eat-dog world out there, and she has to be so like cutthroat. But the author literally writes in the book that like a lot of people like don't like her. She's a very unlikable character, but I think that just shows to like the world that we live in that as women, sometimes to like get to the top, some people won't like you, but even though you're doing the exact same thing that maybe a man would do, there's just like a different way that people receive you. So it just was, to me, I loved it, but I know everyone won't like that book, but it was really good. Then I read The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. This was a cute, fluffy little read. I feel like this would be a great summer read. It was like a friends to lovers story, and it was really cute. Gave me rom-com vibes, and this was a book that I don't know if it had spice, or if it did, it had like very minimal spice. I don't really remember there being any. Then I read Reggie and Delilah's You're Falling, and this book was so cute. This one also didn't have any spice, and it's by Elise Bryant. one of my favorite books that I feel like everyone should read for summer. It's just such a cute book. There's such great diversity in it because both characters are kind of nerdy, a little quirky. They like anime, and they like Dungeons and Dragons, and they like, you know, are musicians, and just a little different. And I feel like it's nice to read stories about Black men and women who are just like outside of the typical stereotype you'd see in books, because we're not monoliths. We're like all so different. So I really love that one. Then I read The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. I was so bored by this book, and it's literally because they talk about assassins the entire book. I just was over it. Then I read Flow by Kennedy Ryan. This is the second book I've read by this author, and I swear, you guys know I am not obsessed with novellas or like short books, and I love this book. Like, absolutely ate it up. And I bought the whole series. So that just goes to show that this author is one of my favorites. Then I read Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan and fell in love with Mia Sheridan's writing. This gave soft boy vibes, and you don't really read that often in books. But Archer is just like so thoughtful and very like kind and warm, and the whole book just gave like cozy vibes. Then I read Untying the Knot by Megan Quinn. This was a spicy book, like holy cannoli, but the banter in it was amazing. It was a little long. It's like 470 pages, I think, and I wasn't obsessed with like the length of it because it did kind of be like, okay, where are we going with this when we get into the end? But the banter was so good. It's about a guy who pretty much stops kind of seeing his wife. Like, you know, she's like obviously living and they're existing together, but they're not really connecting. So then she asks for a divorce, and he tries to win her back. And then With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, who wrote The Poet X, was another book that I read. And this book was really good as well. This was a YA book, and I like reading books with like more diversity, and I'm pretty sure she's Dominican, I think. And it just was like a really fun read. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I read so many books, and it is just wild to me how many I read. Like, not only reading 50 books, but 50 books like within such a short timeline is crazy to me. So if you guys want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe, and there'll be a new video coming on Thursday and Saturday as always. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and make sure to follow me on Goodreads so you can see like the live updates, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys!